if you're an artist listening to this and you have like a bunch of songs on your hard drive, there's like this fear of being done.
Just finished a great conversation with Travis Ference, Grammy-nominated mixing engineer, producer, and recording engineer based out of LA. Nearly 2 decades of experience, multiple #1 albums, platinum, gold records, top 10s, TV shows, blockbuster films, and over 1 billion streams. Really, really beautiful conversation, and we also got to talk about the LA fires of which he was affected. So stick around for that. Before we get into it, I'd like to introduce our title sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists get to keep 100% of royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music onto Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all of the major streaming services. And you can get on there too with our discount if you go to distrokid.com/VIP/lovemusicmore. All one word. You can sign up today. DistroKid app is also available on iOS and Android, so go to the App or Play Store to download it. Check your royalties on the go. Put some music on the internet on the go. It's a beautiful thing. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with Travis. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Love Music More. I'm joined with Travis. We're going to be talking about an incredible musical journey, a crazy last year, and Grammy nominations, and all of that, industry insider information that you'll be able to give our listeners. How's it going, Travis?
How's it going? Good to be here.
So one of the things I was watching and listening to before we got started was Progression, Success in the Music Industry podcast. And I think that's a really fun place to kind of start, is looking at what your content creator kind of journey has been, the things that you've found most interesting or resonating with your audience, and then maybe kind of grab a few of the greatest hits so we can just start off this conversation here.
Yeah, totally. So my podcast, I started in 2020, like most of society did. I just forgot to stop. But it kind of came from this place of being in LA for like, at that time, like 15, 16 years. And not feeling like I got where I wanted to be. I was like really frustrated and had like a lot of like peer, I don't want to say envy. Like I was making my living working in recording studios. So it's not like life wasn't bad. I just had a different picture of what I thought my life would be. And I really started thinking about that kind of stuff and looked around at a lot of my friends. And I was like, everybody kind of feels this way. Everybody's like, why don't I have the hit that I thought I was going to have? Or why don't I make the records I thought I was going to make? And so I really started thinking about like what success means. And I was probably, I was like mid 30s at the time, and like, getting ready for marriage. And it's like a million, if you're listening and you're in that part of your life, you know what I'm talking about. Like everything is like, you're just flipping everything over to see if it can be better or if it needs to be changed. And so I just started interviewing people, and the big point was to ask them how they define success and if they've ever decided to change what that means. Like, when you were a kid, was success standing on the Grammy stage, and now it's spending time with my wife and kids and not even doing music professionally, So there's just like such a wide gamut of things that success can be. And so that's kind of where it started. And then it's turned into more of a video focused podcast, but still anchoring on those same themes of more about your career and how to feel good about making music, and a little bit less about how to set the compressor for the perfect vocal sound, because we've got enough of that content, right? We don't need any more of that.
Totally.
But yeah, so that's kind of the story of where it came from. And it's kind of my creative outlet at this point.
That's really interesting to hear. And I love kind of hearing that from, people in music, finding alternative kind of ways of like expressing themselves and being creative, where you think, oh, it's music all the time, and it's kind of like, at a certain point you want to have more going on. You're a more diverse person than just that.
Totally. And I found that I was excited to learn new stuff. Like, as soon as it became a video thing, there was even more learning. First it was how do you do an audio podcast? How do you do an interview? How do you not black out in the middle of a conversation? But now it's like, how do I do lights? How can I get a better lens? How can I do this edit? How can I learn these graphics? I just wanted to learn new stuff. Not that there wasn't things to learn musically. I mean, I could go back to practicing guitar, but just like the newness of it made me really excited. So, yeah, it energizes me a lot. It's a lot of time, as you know, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but it's a lot of fun.
Totally. Totally. And it is interesting also to think about that central question of like, what is success? How is that defined? And it is a moving target, not just from the industry side, but also just from the personal side as you're, growing, wife and kids, like that kind of life. It shifts your priorities. It shifts who you are. It's not, and like, I think younger people might look at it and be like, oh, you're giving up, you're selling out. It's like, no, but you actually do physically and mentally and spiritually change over time. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, no, totally. And something else, just after I said I wouldn't black out in the middle of a conversation, I don't know. I found it like inspiring to pull things from outside music. Even like I'm a big like business nerd, and like reading, a business book or listening to business podcasts. And then like, well, how does that apply to my mixing business? Because I think that once you find your place in music, you can get really complacent, especially if you get comfortable, right? And you're like, I'm doing it. I'm paying everything. I'm doing all the things I need to do. You can not stretch yourself. So I think it's important to have that stretch. And even if it's outside music, right? Maybe you don't need to be a better guitar player. I think there's a lot to taking on a hobby that's also kind of interesting.
Totally. And actually, I think that's the guitar part is actually really interesting too, because there is very much a set of like diminishing returns in most things in music. Like, yes, you might be able to hone a bit of gear or some product knowledge or scales or whatever, transcribe a bunch of things that are like really, really hard. But then you get to the gig and they don't want any of that. And maybe it's good because it like amplifies your dexterity, right? But like at a certain point, you really are kind of hitting that asymptote of like, you are good enough to be able to make music. Like, go make music.
Totally. It's like the drummer thing where you got the one guy that plays every fill and he does the Zappa Black Sheet, like in one, like reads it down in one take. And then you got the other guy that just plays groove and you're like, I want this dude over here because his pocket is tight. This guy is amazing. I want to watch him play.
Yeah.
But I want to record with that guy.
Instagram versus reality kind of.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But it's real. I mean, and not to shame either. And also like you can do both and one can inform the other, of course. But there is like an element of like, get out of the woodshed and just create now, like make, explore. And we're not the NBA. We're not like a competitive in that way where somebody gets really good at shooting threes or whatever, ball handling. And now they're the best in the world. They're making millions. It's like, if you get really good at arpeggios, it's like, great, you're good at arpeggios.
Totally, exactly.
King Vay Malmsteen.
Yeah.
I don't love his playing. That's the one bit of hate I will throw out. But yeah, I do think that the studio world is very much the same. Just like how you were talking about how there's a lot of content about individual bits of gear. Yeah. And I think that is one of those like fake productivity things that you can do.
Ooh, totally.
I think did you do a post recently about like only using one compressor? Was it FabFilter? Only one compressor on the entire thing?
I did. Yes, and it ruined the mix. It wasn't the compressors thing, but it's like at first it was, I'm going to do this because I'm kind of not bored, but it sounds like it would be fun. I've never actually just tried to use one thing, right? Like, okay, I'm going to make a new challenge for myself. And I did it. But I spent most of my time listening to the compressor and like finding the best compressor setting for the thing I was listening to and not listening to the music. And like it was an artist that I do a lot of work with. And I was just like, his notes back were something, he's like, it's not like normal. Like that, his note was like literally almost something's different and I don't understand. And I was like,
so good.
He did it. I'm sorry. So yeah, the tools aren't everything.
Yeah, but I think that's a great story because it's almost like the tools can delude you too. Or like, I like to think of that a lot with the fancy, really pretty user interfaces, the GUIs, graphics. Yeah. sometimes they can really trick you into thinking that this sounds better because it's prettier or it's got like a fun reactive light or animation or something like that.
Right. Or it looks like it's doing a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But it's used soothe and knows that I just kind of made the soothe the symbol. But yeah, no, I like soothe, but
I do. Yeah, but I hear you.
One of those plugins that gets a lot of shit these days. I found that trying things outside of music made me more comfortable doing the actual job that I was doing. Because if you're an artist listening to this and you have like a bunch of songs on your hard drive, there's like this fear of being done. And as a mixer and an engineer, a lot of times you have that, but you don't really realize because you're working with other people, and eventually it feels like it's them that don't want to finish, but really it's also you. And when I was became the sole person making something, whether that be a podcast or a YouTube video or whatever, eventually you learn that you have to let go. And the amount of growth from just like, this is what this interview is, or what this post is. It's not going to be better than this. And I'm going to put this into the world and I'm going to learn from the reaction, I think is super valuable for anybody that is making music. I finish mixes faster because now I'm comfortable being like, I've realized the vision. Let's send it to the artist. And I did a hard tangent to go backwards, but that was something I wanted to bring up that I couldn't remember. So
yeah. No, I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, something about just letting it go and putting it out there, I think can transfer into the thing that you're more, precious about.
Yeah. I want to kind of pull on that thread a little bit more about like work-life balance and thinking about, because there's the natural tendency of just, if I work more, if I take on more mixes, like then I'll be able to make money, then I'll be successful, then the flywheel will start, and then I'll be able to figure that out later.
Yeah.
When do you start figuring out work-life balance? Is that something you start with, or especially for like a musician world where a lot of it is not defined hours or like a boss in front of you or something?
Well, I think it's particularly challenging because we all love what we do. Like we're hopefully making a living doing the thing that like energized us when we were kids, or maybe discovered later, right? And so it's not work. My wife is always like, "Why are you still working?" I'm like, "I'm not working. No. I'm finishing the mix." And she's like, "You're working. Why are you still working? It's dinner time." And I'm like, "It's so close." But I think just because of that, it becomes particularly challenging. But I think that you will never make work-life balance until you have something else that you want to put an equal amount of energy in. Okay. And for me, that was when I met my wife and we wanted to start a family. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can do both of these things. I've just never wanted to do the other thing. And so you let work become everything. Yeah. And then the other thing I found when we had our first child was that your time is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and you just start working faster and faster, but yet for some reason not to a lower quality level. There's something about having a kid and losing hours to like being a parent that doesn't affect your quality. It only affects your time. I didn't know that. This is weird. There's probably some science I bet we should do about it, because I get a crazy amount of work done on like a 2-hour baby nap now that I used to, because you can't get distracted. You can't go like, well, maybe I'll check out the new 1176 plugin for 45 minutes. You're like, no, this plugin sounds good on this vocal. This is great. It feels good. Next, moving on to the guitar. So yeah, I don't think you can really even understand what balance is until you have something you want to balance. And if you don't, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to put it too. And I think honestly, for people that don't have kids, that maybe could put our minds at ease a little bit, because you look at that and you go, that's a lot of time, or that's a lot of energy. And you're excited for that part of your future, but it remains future in part because you have all these things you want to get to do or whatever. And you want to maybe like have things done so that the kid could like, afford baby food.
Yes. It's true. You kind of, I don't know. I don't want to make this about parenting, but I feel like you can never be ready. Like you just have to, I mean, you can't be irresponsible, but you can always move the bar of preparation. And it's the same thing with making music. You can always move the bar. You're like, the mix is great. Let's have somebody else mix it, see if it sounds better. You know, it's like, we have enough money to feed the child for 8 weeks. Let's see if we can feed the child for 16 weeks. But even though, you know, it's still 9 months before it shows up. But yeah, you can always move the bar. So I think people should be aware of, like, you know, are you procrastinating? Whatever it is, you know. But I mean, yeah, obviously there's a level of irresponsibility in like having a child, but you'll never be ready.
But I do like this in terms of the parallels with mixing. And I think mixers are a great node in that journey, because like mastering engineer, it's already baked. Like they're putting polish on it, they're finishing. But really the mixers are that is the threshold in between. We recorded a bunch of stuff and now we have a song that like we want to commercially make available. And the mix engineer, to varying degrees, is bridging that gap or helping guide that artist. Or, you know, accidentally the manager is saying, let's have 15 different mixes and then we'll pick the best one and then it'll be better. Because I've seen that happen a lot. And I couldn't think of a worse decision than not making the decision.
No, it's torturous, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why are we still doing this?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you want to get into like the philosophy of like how music is made now. The DAW and the computer is not helping, right? And the fact that most people can't afford crazy amps and pedals and outboard gear, like all those things that people like capture in the studio because of the tone that they have. Like the average musician doesn't have those things. So now they're using an amp simulator. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody's using amp simulators, but the problem is that you can change those knobs all the way up until mastering. And when you're in a studio, you have to change the knobs on the amp until you hit record. And then all the other decisions around that, they all inform each other. And in this like nothing is permanent world, I think sometimes a production can feel like nothing ever informed anything else because everything kept changing. You're changing the guitar tone because of what you recorded to the bass, and then you're changing the bass because you added a synth bass, and then the guitar tone feels weird, so you change the guitar tone. And it can just be very, I don't know, something about making the decision that I think makes a big difference. A big difference.
It's funny because when I started doing all of that in the box, my computer was really bad. So I had to commit everything all the time because I just didn't have the CPU resources. But it trained me to this day. I commit stuff like crazy, where it'll go through like 4 revisions. I'll have all those files. I could technically pull it back up, but I'm printing. I'm making decisions, and then I can layer more decisions on top of that if I want to. If I want to change the tone more, I can, but it's changing it from the changed space, not the original, almost ever.
Yeah, no, totally.
Super freeing. Yeah,
totally. And as a mixer now, like I feel like when I started 20 years ago, there was, I wasn't mixing records 20 years ago, right? I was getting coffee and cleaning toilets. But I feel like the attitude was, give me your raw files.
Exactly.
Because I am going to create with those files. And now, if somebody sends me the raw files, it's just like straight to the email, like, I cannot work from this because every decision you've ever made is gone, and I'm going to be burnt. Like, yes, I can match this, but I can tell you the amount of creativity I have left after I recreate your rough mix is going to be very, very tiny. So let's take this thing to 150% and you rebalance the files with all of your decisions. Yep. And if something is too reverbed or too distorted, or I think I can do something that is more interesting or is a variation of that, then I'll be like, hey, let me get that raw. But it's because of the amount of work that's done in the computer now that is forever changeable. Like the starting point for a mix has to be your final vision.
Yeah.
Or you're going to go down rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you'll win, but my experience is that you are always going to have some kind of demoitis to the rough mix because something is going to be different. No one's going to put their finger on it. It's always just going to be different.
Let's talk about that word demoitis, because I don't know if everybody listening has ever heard that before.
Okay, so demoitis is, traditionally at the end of a day of recording, you print a rough mix and everybody takes it home, right? And then you collect these rough mixes, and then everybody's listening to this and listening to how it sounds, and then you get your song mixed. And somebody in the band will always be like, well, the rough from like February 13th, I'm like, it's December 12th. Like, no one gave me this rough mix from February 13th. But the people get attached to hearing something. There's that it's a songwriting book that I can't remember the name of. They talk about how, like, a lot of pop hits, you might not like it, but then you hear it like 3, 4, 5 times in a week. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, this new Taylor Swift song is really good. I didn't like this yesterday. Why do I like this now? And it's that repeated, you just are so used to hearing it that way.
Yeah.
So Demoitis it's never going to sound better than the demo, because you're addicted to what the demo sounds like. And so every decision you're making in the final is based on what the demo sounded like. And that is frustrating for some people who are maybe mixing or mastering or whatever. But there's something to that, right? Like, if the first round of notes I get as a mixer is make it sound more like the rough mix. I mean, when I said my first mix, I always feel like I destroy the rough mix, right? Mm-hmm. And so then I might have to flip back to this rough mix, and it might be like really muddy and unclear, and my mix might be crystal clear and like tight and punchy, but there's something about that mud that is like magical. And so then it's like becomes this, okay, I need to translate what they really love about what I don't. And that's the challenge of finishing a record when someone is in love with the rough.
Yeah.
Demoitis.
It's a good word. And it's also fun to think about like focal points. So when you're mixing, it's a lot easier. We're thinking a lot more of like, where are we leading the listener? How does somebody approach this song for the first time? The Demoitis is the exact opposite of like, we just set levels, we printed it. You all are super familiar with the song. Maybe guitarist, you love that your guitar is super loud in this, but any other rational listener would be like, turn down the guitar.
Yes, exactly. Actually, sometimes I always try to remember that the worst thing you can do, in my opinion, as a mixer, is let the first mix you send out have the vocal too loud.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because no one's ever going to let you turn that back down, And so I'm always like, I like to separate and then listen a couple different places and be like, vocal might be loud. I'm going to turn it down a little bit, because you got to leave room for someone to say, hey, can you turn the vocal up? Like, if I already think the vocal's too loud and the singer's like, I need more vocal in the chorus, you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Exactly. And they always do. That is like that number one note. Yeah.
So yeah, don't get Demoitis. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Well, I mean, what are the ways to not do it? Would it be like, don't over listen to something that isn't baked? Would it be move faster? Like, sometimes I feel like if I'm recording to mix in a much more compressed time period, there's just no room to get Demoitis, because I'm just not going to spam that song.
I mean, I think that is a good point to work faster, but then sometimes you might not be working faster. You might be saving to finish that mix. But then, I mean, honestly, like, as a mixer, I shouldn't say this. If your song is done and you love how it sounds and you've been saving for 6 months to pay a mixer, maybe it's time to ship that thing to mastering instead. Skip mixing, because you really like it. Everybody around you likes it.
Totally.
So maybe it's done. Probably shouldn't say that because I get paid to mix, but that's the truth. I mean, sometimes I feel like there are steps that can be skipped. Does something always have to go to mastering if like everybody loves it and it's loud enough and the mixer understands all the things? I mean, no, does it have to? I mean, there's plenty of tracks that go straight from the studio to Spotify these days that get
You're just talking about Sheps, like he's
you won the loudness wars, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Insider joke. Yeah, so I just think that sometimes maybe you don't need all those steps.
Yeah.
It sounds good. If it sounds good, it is good.
Yeah. And I mean, there's also a thing about genre in there too of, I don't know, if you hand certain things to professionals, I'd say 80% is the right decision to hand it to the professional. But there might be like a 20% of hey, I didn't understand how digital clipping worked, or like I didn't understand routing, but I ended up making a new genre. Like, oops. But if you would have handed that off, maybe they would have sanded off some of those edges, and now it doesn't have what made that. In the same way that like weird gear in the wrong hands can make incredible things.
I know. I always like, I remember the first time somebody hit me to like hyper pop.
Yeah, right. Totally.
And they were like, hey, check this out. And I'm like, I don't get it. And like, I've always had this fear that like somebody might like send me this huge hyper pop artist and I have to be like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, I don't know. We should talk about maybe somebody else doing it. Which is another thing you can talk about it. We can talk about is if you're not right for the gig, it might be better not to do it.
So fair. That was my ultimate thing with sync music, like sync library music.
Yeah.
I'm not meant for it, man. Like I put too much of like my DNA onto the thing and it just never quite works. It just isn't right. It's like, it's just not me.
Yeah. It has to be original, but not.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a real skill in it. Like somebody gave me the note of, we want it to not really have an emotion. We want it to have like movement, but no real emotion. I was like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I've failed, and I failed for years and years and years because, that's where money is. But it's a very good point of like, at this stage of my career, I'm, unless it's a specific thing, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is a thing to like, and then to do it in a way that it can be chopped really well. And there's a lot of usability in there. Like I
can do that. But
yeah. There's people that are great at it.
Yeah, totally. It's
hills.
And it's very, it can be a very lucrative thing. But same thing with mixing of like, hyperpop is a great example of you just really got to rethink. And the only way that I've been able to do is I've been in rooms producing things with people that do only hyperpop, and my God, it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, I do love, not specifically that, but I love anything that like really embraces the no rules thing.
Yeah,
because
totally.
You need like some boundaries and some rules to like learn,
mm-hmm.
but then eventually like you got to push them out of the way and just move with what works, what feels good.
Rules can also help collaboration. It's easier to break a rule when you don't have anybody you're accountable to.
That's true.
Sorry to interrupt this very important broadcast. What I'm asking for is for you to rate it 5 stars, share it with your friends. This is like the most important thing for this podcast to grow. So if you want to do this, you go onto the podcast screen, right? You click on the ... on Spotify. Under there, it says rate show, and you go and you click it. 5 stars. If you could do that for me, that's the best way for the algorithms and all this stuff to share it out with the world. I know that it's a lot to ask, but if you could please just hit those 3 dots and then a 5 star, it would really help us out and helps us, get the word out and spread the love of music. So thank you. If you're listening on YouTube, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. And here's the rest of the episode. What genres would you be like, I don't know if I could, or is it certain sonic palettes or like?
I think for me, it is music that I don't actively listen to.
Yeah.
And it's not like a like or dislike. I don't listen to a lot of hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do, it's not new hip hop. It's like when I was like in middle school, like 90s hip hop, just for the nostalgia of it, or like hyper pop, but like anything that's like organic and like natural. Like I got so much of that working in Capitol Studios and listening to all of that. And like I grew up playing guitar and I just love pop music so much. There's not a lot of genres. Like I even will do orchestral, like classical, like string score stuff. Like I think that stuff's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't get to do that much of it. I have a couple clients that send me stuff every once in a while. But when I was at Capitol, I was always like, you watch all the strings playing. You're like, God, that sounds awesome. Can I do movies? I want to do movies. Pop music is for me. I was always a closet pop head.
With experience at Capitol, do you think about like reverb and rooms and like reverb plugins differently? Like, are you reaching for things to try to capture like sound chambers and stuff?
I mean, I don't think not really differently than many other people. I mean, there's a few things that like you learn from those orchestral sessions is that it's not about like miking the violin here, like, or close, I guess, for audio listeners. It's about the air around those instruments, or like French horn, for example.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of French horn is mic'd not like, if you think about playing a trumpet, you play into the microphone.
Right.
French horn like wraps behind you and it blows behind you. Most orchestral sessions, basically any movie score you ever heard, that horn is mic'd from in front of the player up over their head. And it's about the sound of the horn in the room, not anything about the directness of it. So I think those things, like whenever I'm handed fake strings or fake horns and stuff like that, immediately I'm just grabbing some kind of like room, try to like glue those things together, because I know that it's not about it being bright and in your face. It's about like the sum of the parts, and it's about the room mics if you were actually recording it, and everything else is about like poking the part out. Like, we need a little bit more of the flute melody. And you push that fader up a little bit more and you pull it back down. And also, like, Reverb, Capitol is known for its 8 reverb chambers that are under the parking lot. I know UAD makes an emulation of that, which is really good. It's not perfect, but it's really good. And the thing about those is the way that those chambers, particularly those, work is it feels like more when it comes to strings.
Yeah.
So if you put 16 strings into it, and just the way it builds up in there, it feels like more strings. It doesn't feel like strings with long reverb. I mean, other than those 2 things, I mean, I don't think I think about reverb differently than anybody else. And there's probably a million people that think everything I just said.
I realize that some people might not even know what a reverb chamber is. Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, totally.
What's underneath that parking lot?
So you might think of, like, I think most people know of their reverb pedal or their reverb plugin, right? But before pedals and plugins, the only way to make reverb was in a room. And so what a lot of places would do is they would find some closet somewhere in the attic that was like away from everything, like shellac it with like glossy, like reflective paint or some plaster or something. And they would put speakers and microphones in it. And then they would pump music into the speaker, and it would get picked up by the microphone, and it would come back to the board in the studio, and that was your reverb. You had to make your reverb, essentially. Like, if you wanted a room on your drums, you had to put a microphone up. You couldn't have dead drums and put a room on later because you didn't have a plug-in, you didn't have a box. And so until digital reverb, you always had these natural chamber reverbs, and then you also had the plates and the springs. Those came along first, and then I think EMT made the first digital. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Reverb.
Totally. It's such a fun, like, we're just going to stick a speaker and a microphone into a room.
Yeah. Well, something that people just don't, we talk about the air. I did a record with an artist, I think it's like 10, 11 years ago now, named Lo-Fang. And he was a string player, multi-instrumentalist, but his thing was violin and cello, but then he wrote, they were essentially like, super left of center pop songs. And we were working in a smaller room at Capitol, and the violin was always pretty close mic'd. And it makes it always like a little like squealy, and like you hear like the brush of on the string. And so we would go down towards the end of the record to get some air. We would go downstairs in the middle of the night, because we were always working at night on this record. There'd be nobody in Studio A at Capitol. And I would throw up a couple room mics where they would go, or just to get the space, and then reamp, violin parts that we wanted some more space to, maybe a blend, just to save time, and just print like a whole string section through the room, reamp it into the room, capture with those microphones, record it back in, then we'd go back upstairs to the smaller room, and we just had a fader of Studio A reverb. And we did the same thing with the chambers, so that we didn't have to worry about somebody downstairs using the reverb chamber. We would just record it. And the only downside to that is, you can't change any performances, or else you have to re-record it. You can't tune any vocals. I think that's something that some people will do, is they'll like go to a studio that has like a plate reverb and tell the engineer, like, well, let's print the plate. And then they'll do their vocal takes.
Yeah.
And then tune their vocal, and then try to use that EMT. Like I said, there's no rules, but technically I would say that's a no-no.
Totally. Have a chorus effect with your own reverb. Yeah.
Yeah. But, if it works, right?
Totally. I would probably lean into it, just throw a chorus on the reverb.
There you go. Problem solved. Problem solved.
Yeah, it is fun when artists will send you, like, I've had artists tell me, don't tune the vocals, and then they'll send me a completely out of tune double with a tuned lead. And it's like, okay, gonna get creative.
No, that's tricky.
Yeah, creative constraints, and sometimes you just like don't listen to them and see if they like it in the mix.
Sometimes you got to fix a couple things here.
Exactly. Little touch-ups of paint.
So I think people don't realize how much a performance can be masked by the rough mix, and then as the mix comes together, you realize that like that melody guitar is out of tune, and you doubled it with a synth. Or I guess it's probably more likely maybe your synth was like not quite in tune, but your guitar was. And that starts to come to life when every part has its space. And then, sometimes you have to do some touch-ups or replay a part or whatever, but that's fine. It's natural.
Yeah. And that's actually a really good point of like just how you're talking about with like the rough mix with mud, like all of those kind of low frequencies rumbling down there. That could block a lot of the ability to like, tell are these things talking to each other? Are they working? And then when you clear that all up and you look around at that room and you go, oof, there's some
low end stuff too. Like a lot of like
low end stuff. Yes.
If you have a synth bass and like a really pure synth bass, and then you're playing like a P bass with it or something, like just tune it. Just tune the P bass, right? Because you have this plug in perfectly in tune sub bass that's playing along with it that real bass needs to be tight.
I tune bass often.
It can make a big difference.
Yeah. Because you listen from the bottom up typically when you're discerning tuning. And like I'll listen to a vocal be like, why is this so like flat? And you're like, bass is sharp. Put the bass in and then the whole thing snaps into place. You go, there you go.
Yeah.
Little things.
The little things you pick up. I mean, you have to screw everything up a couple times to learn how to do everything. I think that's totally natural.
That's a good way to put it. Especially with mixing, because there's like an infinite number of things that you can screw up and across all of these different genres. Like experience. I really get why experienced mix engineers make the money. Yeah.
But 15% of screw ups are also awesome.
Totally, that's also fair.
That's distorted. Let's leave it. I love it.
Fair, right?
Yeah,
exactly. History and distortion.
I'm like, oh, that's double bust into like some spring reverb. You're like, that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. I accidentally recorded the talkback. Like, well, there you go.
There you go. Right? Yeah, totally. Drums through the talkback you can't beat it. You have to record it. Because for some reason, it always sounds great.
I know. And I guess if listeners don't know that, the talkback microphone, the means to be able to communicate to the musicians and from the engineers, because we're in these isolated spaces in a traditional studio.
Yeah.
But sometimes crazy, cool effects. And the same way that like an iPhone, whatever limiter or whatever they have on the iPhone can sometimes sound really cool.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. There was a thing, I don't know if it still exists, but iPhones would sometimes have time compression. So like you'd import the iPhone mic with something else that was professionally recorded and you'd be like, what's going on? There's like a one period where the iPhone just like kind of glitched or dropped a few milliseconds. And then you're like, this is all broken.
Yeah. Or I haven't done this, but I know people that have mid-production, like, okay, we're going to print the piano down to this Tascam cassette player. And that thing ain't playing back at the same speed.
Oh yeah.
So then you print it, you get like this like cool tape tone, you print it, and you just like hand a hard drive to the assistant, and you're like, this needs to be in the same place that it was for the whole song. See you in an hour.
Exactly.
Like for people that don't know, the tape's going to play back at different speeds, especially like a cassette where there's just no control. Like a professional tape machine had better control, but it's still moving too, even expensive machines back in the day. So the cool part about tape.
Right, totally. And you get to do cool tape effects too with it.
Yeah.
I've yet to find anything that can do the like Beatles-esque speed up, slow down that feels like you really sped up or slowed down tape versus like digital artifacted or even things that claim to do it. I've yet to find anything that in the box can feel the same way like
there is a plug-in.
Drop it on. I'm ready.
I can turn around and look. Hang on.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. While you're doing that, I'll talk about like when I'm 64 of like wanting to get Paul McCartney's voice sounding more youthful, like when he wrote the song. So they sped up the entire vocal performance slightly. I guess actually the whole song, they sped the whole thing up, right? Or just pitched it up.
I do not know the specifics, but I don't know if this is what you were talking about, but there's a plugin called Reels by Audio Thing.
Cool.
And it has a play stop button that you can automate. And so, and I think I just closed it.
Yeah.
I think there was a kind of a speed. So when when it's playing back, if you hit stop, it goes.
Ah, cool. Nice. Yes.
And then you can automate that on and off. And so then you automate the playback on, and it's
sweet.
And it's pretty fun to play with.
Yeah.
It's like, it's easier to write that automation in, like just with button click than because it's kind of just a vibe. So you can just, but anyway,
that's fun. I like
things that I've spent too much time doing.
Yes.
But those are also the things where people are like, would you do?
Yeah.
You know, can you take that off? And you're like,
yeah, I know. Totally.
You're like, I stopped everything in the middle of the song. Don't do that.
The plight of the mix engineer. And it's like, you got to keep trying, because every once in a while that'll be the thing that'll make the song. So can't hold back. Yeah. I think there's 3 stages to mixing, right? There's when you know nothing and you overdo everything, but you get away with it because you're also working with a bunch of people that they don't know what they want or what is supposed to happen. All they know is you know how to work the computer, so you can make the vocal doubled without them singing it again. And so you take all these liberties, but it's fine because that's also like the expectation of the client. And then you realize, then you start interacting with people that don't want that. And then you're afraid to take all these liberties. And also you ruin a lot of things, but that's fine, right? Everybody's learning. You're young. And then the next stage is you start to get all these notes like, why'd you change this? Why'd you change that? Why'd you change this? Why'd you change that? Make it sound like the rough. Make it sound like the rough. And then you start doing very little. And then it's kind of boring and it kind of sucks a little bit. Like the vibe of your mixes is like, it sounds like the rough plus 1%. Everybody's happy. Nobody's blown away. And then you make it through that stage. And then you start to figure out how you can basically deliver something that feels like their rough mix or their demo to them, but then has the liberties and the taste that you were trying to develop when you were younger. And that's like really the tricky zone, is how do I put myself into this while 100% respecting the vision that they had. Like when they hear it back, it should sound like their song. Yes.
But it should also sound like me when I listen to it. But they shouldn't be like, yo, dude, this sounds like you. Now, unless you're sending something to Chad Blake, right? That's going to come back sounding like Chad Blake, but that's what you paid for.
Yeah.
But that third, I think a lot of people don't make it to that third space because I think it's challenging to master that. And it takes time to understand what you think, like what your taste is, right? Like what is your sound? I think I barely know what my own sound is. Like I think I know what it is, but I don't know if that's really what it is. Also, like when you're the one doing it, you know, if you're an artist and you're like, this is the strong point of my music, and your fans are like, no, we like this. You're wrong. You know?
That's the part of taste. But I also think that taste is probably the most important thing right now in music and everything, maybe in the entire economy or whatever. Is like developing what you think is good and how to defend it, or how to like make things go in that direction. I think it's probably the number one skill.
I totally agree, because everything is gonna kind of be the same pretty soon, and we all know why.
Yep.
And we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like now is the time to like lean more into you.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't know if the audience wants that today, but they will.
Yeah.
When they realize like how generic life is going to become.
Yeah.
They're always going to be lagging behind, right? The people that are making are always going to be pushing the boundary, but eventually humanity will catch up and be like, give me the human shit.
I don't know if you want to talk about this, but like your last year has been very human. You were talking about what you've got going on outside right now. Would you be open to sharing a little bit of kind of what's happened in your life and your experience along with your community?
Yeah, totally. So like a little bit over a year ago in January, I was supposed to do this podcast and I got this email and they were like, hey, you didn't show up on the Zoom. And I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry. I'm like evacuating from Altadena because I live in Altadena, which was affected by the LA fires. And so my wife was pregnant, like 7-8-ish months, like in that zone. Wow. We had a daughter who was going to turn 3 soon. and we just left because there was a fire, not thinking like, oh, there's been fires before. And
Right.
obviously it was different than before. Our house survived. I'm sitting in it. This is my little corner. I've been mixing records for 20 years, and my bed is right there because my studio burnt down. And I opted to not rent a space and just, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to work on headphones in various apartments because we weren't able to live in our home until last October. So we were gone for about 10 months.
Wow.
And just so my 20 years of music equipment, everything gone. A lot of my neighbor, every property we share a lot line with is gone. We're in an area that's like, like one street's good, one street's gone, two houses are gone. It's like very spotty. Like if you go up 2 blocks north of where I live, it's nothing up there. So it's like, I sound a little disconnected, I think, about it, but I've been going through a lot of it for a long time. Totally. So right now the garage, which was the studio, is almost rebuilt. We're a few weeks away from that being a garage again. So if you've heard people talking or noises, the old thin windows. Let's talk about like the positives, right? The negatives are abundant. It's easy to Google the internet and find out how awful it was. And if you're not totally familiar with it, like mind-blowingly awful.
Yeah.
Altadena, 9,600 structures gone. Even people in Los Angeles are like, I don't think they get it. And then like if you do the Google map and you just see like miles of brown that used to be homes. Mind-blowingly horrible.
Yeah.
But I have this I've learned a lot about insurance. I've learned a lot about people. I've learned a lot about everybody and everything, stuff that I never wanted to learn. But now I have that information, and somewhere something bad is going to happen. And hopefully I can help, a musician or an engineer with knowledge now. At least I have that.
Yeah.
From like my career standpoint, I learned a lot about what's important in a mix. Like when I rebuild the studio, there's a lot of things I want. There's not a lot of things I need. Basically nothing I need. Now that I've been mixing on AirPods and a couple pair of headphones, I never bought speakers.
Yeah.
Because we've never been in a space. We have a small house. We've got 2 kids. We've never been in a space where I could take over a room.
Yeah.
So we were living in temporary housing, in apartments and bouncing around. And it was just been easier to just have the reference point of a pair of headphones. And you know what? It worked. And I miss the air, and I can't wait to have speakers in an acoustically tuned studio again. If all you have are headphones, you should never feel like you're at a disadvantage for anybody listening, because you can keep doing it. I think what was hardest for me was those first few months. You don't realize the confidence that's tied to like your workflow, or your space.
Yeah.
I knew that, we'll go back to having kids as the example, right? I knew that if my daughter was taking a nap, I could go out and get a lot of meaningful work done in 2 hours, because everything was so dialed in, and I could make decisions very quickly and feel confident about those decisions.
Yeah.
And then to have those things taken away, then you get to being way less productive, because now I'm worried about like the headphones that I have, because I should throw in there that I never really mixed on headphones. Like I didn't like it.
Wow. Yes.
And so I couldn't even like go and buy a pair of Audio-Technica M50s, which were the headphones that I had in the studio. I had a bunch of those. I never mixed on them. So like, what's the difference?
Great.
And then shout out to Steven Slate, sent some VSX to people that were affected.
Good. Yeah.
And I made those work. And then Olo Audio sent me some headphones, and between those Olos and the Slates and the AirPods, I feel like I've gotten a lot of good work done, but it took time to rebuild that confidence again. So that was one of the big takeaways. And then just like more of a non-music thing, just like what stuff means.
Okay. Yeah.
It's my childhood guitar is gone. I didn't play it a lot anymore. And I got a guitar from Fender and I'm not playing it. But then there's also like, there's no urge to like, it's like a tool.
Yeah.
It's object now, like these headphones are just tools.
Yeah.
Like there was so many memories in the gear. Because like anybody that is listening to this that has been recording music for like 5+ years, you've accumulated so much shit that you've used one time, right? But like you can pull that pedal out and be like, dude, this was so sick on this record I did like 9 years ago. Let's do it. And so like all of that is gone. And so it's kind of a bummer to think about the records that I made with the things.
Yeah.
And not necessarily, because now everything I have is just a tool. It has no story.
Right.
My microphone has recorded no one. My headphones have, there's no story. They haven't been on anybody cool's head. My faders or whatever. You know what it is?
I know what you. Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was a trying time.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to do the podcast. I wasn't able to really like be out in the community. Definitely, probably, I would imagine, lost some clients and some connections just because what was important was we had a child while we were living in an apartment, displaced, and then moved to another apartment. So that was important, raising a second child. Yeah. And then the next one after that was, how are we going to get back in my house? I'm going to do anything I possibly can and push every single button against every like my sole purpose in life was to get my family back in our house safely.
Yeah. And
then as soon as the door was open to start building what we lost, like that's it, full steam ahead on like hundreds, like literally hundreds of hours spent. I know because I ran a timer. Hundreds of hours spent on recovery stuff. And it is and we're so much better off than so many people. Right. There are people down my street right now whose house is still standing that have nothing that like no burn damage to their house, but they don't have money to clean their house because their insurance company doesn't believe it needs to be cleaned.
Oh my God.
And so, so it was a lot. Hopefully there was something constructive that somebody could take away from that little rant, but obviously I'm in a much better place now about it. But it was a tough year where you really walk away thinking, like I said, about what's important a lot. And maybe, I think I said this somewhere on my podcast, is that you don't come out of something like this better. Like I'm not a better person having gone through this. I'm not better than someone else because I survived it. You're just different. You're just not the person that went into it.
Yeah.
Not better, not worse, just different.
All right. So Travis, this show is called Love Music More, and this segment is called Love Music Why. Why do you love music?
Man, to me, I don't know. It's marked so many eras of my life. And even if it's like music I don't listen to, I'm sure you get this answer all the time too. But like things that I listened to in middle school and like when I first came to LA and college, like those songs always bring me back to those times, good times, bad times. I mean, we were just talking about The Fire, and there's an artist that I've just listened to nonstop. I don't know why, but like it's like really felt like the right theme for the last year. And so unfortunately I'll probably think about The Fire whenever I hear that artist like years from now, but I don't know, it helps people get through things. I wasn't listening to a lot of music until recently, and something about what I went through brought me back to listening to music and not like being obsessed with podcasts all the time and being like in constant learn this and hear this conversation. And so there's just so much power in it, just, and you see it like with kids, they're so, there's no filter, right? When they hear something they love, they love it. They dance around and it's amazing. And to know that like I can be making music and that it can help people get through something, or that it can be a stamp, or that it can make their kids dance, or whatever it is, just the fact that it's such a universal, identifier for parts of your life, I think is the thing that I think is most powerful for me personally.
It's beautiful. So where can people get in touch?
You can find me on the internet. You can search my name, Travis Ference. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube. If you search Progressions, Success in the Music Industry, or Travis Ference, I might change it. Right now it's youtube.com/progressionspod. Instagram and stuff, T Ference. I'm not going to spell it. People can find it. I don't think I'm that hard to find. I'm not like famous, but if you type my name in, you'll find something.
Well, thank you
Maybe
so
it's what
much.
you're looking for. Maybe it's not.
Yeah,
that's
right,
the
exactly.
game that you're going to play.
Exactly. Good luck. Well, it's
right.
great having this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, man, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do it. I'm sorry that I no showed last time. I felt really bad.
No.
It's taken so long to get back to here.
Please.
A year.
Please do
We
not
got to
feel
do
bad
it.
for that. But I'm so glad that we've been able to, put it
Cool.
on. That's good. All right, man.
All right.
Until next time.
Thanks so much. See ya.